Hello, Jen. It's Kristan Hawkins. Welcome to this episode of Explicitly Pro-Life and the How to Win This Week episode. We're going to talk about today, and the reason we're releasing this episode a little early is because I want to talk about the children who were just given over to the Metropolitan Police in Washington, D.C., these 5 precious children, and what happened to them and what we must do right now. Now, there's a couple of news stories that came out last week. One was that 9 pro-life activists had been arrested for blockading an abortion facility in Washington, D.C. in 2020 by the FBI. As you all may know, there's the FACE Act. This is an early 90s act that was passed that is called the Freedom of Access to Clinical Entrance Act. This makes the land in front of abortion facilities federally protected, making it a felony with jail sentences up to 10 years in federal prison, hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines if you blockade an abortion facility. 9 individuals in 2020 entered an abortion facility in Washington, D.C. and blockaded it, preventing others from accessing the clinic that day, ensuring that no children could die there. The FACE Act came about to end the Operation Rescue movement, which was founded in the late 80s, which took the 1960s style sit-in, applied them to abortion facilities, logic being, if you can't go into the abortion facility, you can't abort your baby, and you may end up choosing life. There's a lot we can discuss about clinic sit-ins, their effectiveness, the downside of those sit-ins, the branding issues that it causes and it has caused to our movement. But I don't want to talk about that today. The reason I brought that up is because one of those individuals, Lauren Handy, had previously, before this arrest, contacted the city of Washington, D.C., alerting them to the fact that she had been given 5 children who were aborted by Dr. Santangelo in Washington, D.C., a well-known late-term abortionist. She contacted the city of Washington and said to let them know that she had received these children, that they are clearly 2nd and 3rd trimester. That's how old they are, children who were aborted, and that wrongdoing had likely occurred, meaning that the way these children had been aborted likely violated federal law and that they needed to have a proper autopsy done. The city of Washington came to her house and picked up those children. The media, the news articles that came out as soon as that happened was that anti-abortionist is storing fetuses in her apartment. It was like this, like they tried to weave like this gruesome tale of Lauren and why she had these preborn children in her home. And there is a legal question about accepting these children, taking into them home. The city of D.C. has said nothing went wrong. There was no wrongdoing in the abortion. The only, legal thing, the only thing that happened that was wrong was how they got into someone's apartment. I don't think so. These are babies who neonatologists have looked at pictures of and said clearly wrongdoing has happened, not just the wrongdoing of killing a baby, but their federal law has likely been violated. There's not a lot of laws in Washington, D.C. that restrict abortions, but we do have a federal law, the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which bans infanticide, birthing children and letting them die. And we also have a federal law, no thanks to KBJ, but we do now have a federal law that bans the procedure partial birth abortion, which is one of the late-term abortion procedures when the child is born alive, except for his or her head, neck is cut, a cannula is inserted into the skull, brain matter is sucked out of the child's skull collapses, child's born dead. It's very clear from the pictures, which you can find on the internet, that these types of abortion procedures, whether it was inducing and birthing a child alive, letting that child die, or using partial birth abortion, was used in these pictures. And these children aren't decades old, they're not years old. It's also very clear that they've been recently killed. And so the reason I wanted to come to you today and why we're publishing this episode a little early this week is because there's going to be more information coming out from the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, a group that Lauren is a part of, more background information this week. But really, we need to keep focus, and we need to get everybody in the pro-life movement demanding that at the very minimum, the city of Washington, D.C. should do a proper autopsy on these children. They deserve at least that. So we need folks calling the chief medical examiner's office, demanding that they do an autopsy. I mean, from their statements so far, they don't want to do it. They said that it appears that nothing has gone wrong or been done improper, except for how these children got to her, which it's baffling that the news media and all these folks who've been talking about this story have really only been focusing on the fact that aborted fetuses, children, were found in Lauren's apartment, anti-abortionist apartment, not the fact that these babies who could have survived outside of the womb. In fact, there are children today who are in neonatology units across the country who were born smaller and younger than these children, who are be given every chance of life, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical care to preserve their life. That's not the story. The story isn't the fact that someone murdered these babies who could have survived outside the womb. The story is an anti-abortionist had them in her home. That's sickening. So what I need you to do, I need you to call the chief medical examiner in Washington, D.C. Here's the phone number. Write it down. 202-698-9000. 202-698-9000. Also send an email. Here's the email address. ocme@dc.gov. ocme@dc.gov. This is the time, Pro-Life Gen, to be activated and to make a phone call, send an email, demand that these 5 children receive at least a proper autopsy. We already know from the abortionist there in Washington, D.C., Dr. Santangelo, years ago in 2013, he told an undercover journalist with Live Action that, he literally said to this person how he births children alive and doesn't have to resuscitate them. But, if you were over the border in Virginia, if they were born alive during abortion, he would be legally mandated to resuscitate them. But he wasn't mandated to do that in Washington, D.C. This is a bad, bad actor. This is a Kermit Gosnell type of abortionist. And I'm looking at the pictures right now of these children. Baby boy number 1. I mean, he looks the same size as my sons when they were born. Absolutely nothing wrong with him. Likely born alive and just waited out to die. Baby girl number 1, you can see from the cut, the laceration in her neck, and from her head has been shrunken. Very likely could have been a partial birth abortion. You can see her eye, but you can't see, her left eye, but you can't see her right eye. Baby girl number 2, very clear that she was aborted using a D&E procedure, dilation and evacuation, where you use forceps and you just pull limbs and, pull, twist, and tear off. She's just in pieces. Baby X was born inside of his or her amniotic sac, so we don't even know the sex of this baby. May have been injected with a feticide like digoxin to cause a heart attack. Not sure, but this child was born inside of his amniotic sac. Which is there's a lot of questions there, because Dr. Santangelo in the past said the way he was committing late-term abortions was he was cutting umbilical cords and just waiting for the child to die from cardiac arrest. You can't cut an umbilical cord if the child's still in the fetal sac, in the amniotic sac. So there's a lot of questions here. So please join me today. Call on the city of DC, the chief medical examiner, to do at the very minimum an autopsy, 202-698-9000 or ocme@dc.gov. There's going to be a lot of answers that we're going to be getting in the next few days to questions I'm sure we all have had. But while we wait, let's get activated. This is a key moment for us in the pro-life movement. I truly believe, because this is an opportunity to demand justice for victims of the abortion industry. It's also an opportunity for us to show the rest of the world just how gruesome abortion is. And the fact that Washington, D.C. has said, oh, it looks like nothing's been done wrong here. Really? That's what you really believe? This is a moment for us to show the country. And we all know what a moment this is. We are in right now with the nomination and the pending confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court, a woman who literally helped write the brief defending partial birth abortion and striking down several states' partial birth abortion laws. The fact that we're waiting on the Dobbs v. Jackson case to come down. And there's this national discussion about abortion happening in our country right now. We have photographic proof of the inhumanity of the abortion industry and how children are dying every day at the hands of abortionists who are operating legally within our cities. So I hope you'll join me. Demand justice for these children so they receive at least an autopsy, so we can confirm if any laws of any of the few laws that are actually available to us have been broken in the city of Washington by Dr. Santangelo. So get active. This is how we're going to win this week, guys. We're going to show the rest of the world the brutality of the abortion industry, and we're going to demand justice for these 5 children.